No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. This is Outspoken Live episode number 103. Please do click and subscribe to our brand new independent news source. If you turn on the notification bell, remember you'll be alerted to our live shows, our uncancelled interviews, and our special royal episodes too. Breaking right now, the Populist Revolt has begun. This petition isn't a petition. It's so much more than that. It's our fury, our frustration, our disgust at being lied to, our anger at the uniparty for thinking that this is just business as usual, and also our rejection of this sort of disgraceful snobbery from the Westminster losers.
Kevin Hollenrake on the show earlier, who was urging that Jeremy Clarkson should stand for Parliament, that he'd welcome him into Parliament. How would you feel about Jeremy Clarkson on the Green benches, Emily Thornberry?
Whatever. I mean, whatever. If people want to vote for him, fine. You know, whatever.
Whatever. They don't give a damn about what we think. So in my digest next, I'll tell you why change is coming to Britain thanks to the petition, whether the establishment likes it or not. Then my superstar panel weigh in, and we have a dream team of barristers today. Stephen Barret and Andrew Eborn both in the house. Also coming up on the show today, what are we not being told about the exploding parcels up and down the country, and why is the MSM ignoring the story? I'll investigate. They're eating the swans. Shock new claims about illegals in Cheshire. And why the Electoral Commission must now investigate the Chancellor Rachel thieves over her fake life. So that is all on the way. Then in the uncancelled after show, you're not going to believe this one, David Walliams, recently sacked from Britain's Got Talent, under pressure over the fact that he used to play trans characters in Little Britain, has just come out as non-binary. Why not just say you're gay? Seriously. So I'm going to show you exactly what he said. This is very bizarre. And remember, the Uncancelled After Show is now broadcast exclusively daily and on demand on Substack, which you can Google or get to right now by visiting www.outspoken.live. If you subscribe to a monthly paid membership, you get access to the after show as well as my exclusive reporting and columns, access to our live chats on the Substack app, and the chance to join a real thriving community. And I have very exciting news for you today. We have literally just launched in the past few minutes, our biggest ever sale. For Black Friday, you will get 30% off. This is a once-a deal. I know how tough times are, but your support means so much to me because it allows me to continue making what I believe is a really important part now of our media ecosystem as we smash the MSM. So www.outspoken.live. The Black Friday 30% off sale is on right now. But let's go. They'll all tell you the petition doesn't matter. They'll all tell you we're delusional for dreaming of smashing the broken two-party system. They'll all tell you Elon Musk doesn't know what he's talking about, Nigel Farage should be ignored, and Tommy Robinson must remain incarcerated. But once again, the deep state, Westminster establishment, civil service blob, and mainstream media have no idea about this country. Certainly not about the anger we feel at an illegitimate government that lied its way into power. So they keep laughing and scoffing at us without realizing very soon they will be swept from power forever in a people's revolution, because trust me, the populist revolt has begun. This petition isn't a petition. It's so much more than that. It's our fury and disgust for being lied to, our anger and frustration at the uniparty for thinking it's business as usual. So they can keep snaring for as long as they want, because I promise you this time it will backfire. And I mean, they have. Of course they have. They're snaring already. All the usual suspects who hate the British public, like Jess Phillips, who would rather pretend that pro-Islam extremists didn't nearly boot her out of Parliament because the real issue is always pathetic straight white men.
This petition to hold a fresh general election has attracted 1.6 million signatures so rapidly.
I mean, I'm not sure you'd have to ask the petitioners, but look, things are difficult. I'm make no bones about the fact that we will have to make difficult decisions, and some people won't like that. I didn't come into politics to please everybody all the time. I came into it to crack on. And look, it's early days. We've been in power for 4 months, and nobody would want to see a petition like this. I can grant you. Although we did just have a general election, but the reality is I would say after a year, 2 years, there is a huge amount of mess to clean up. And I think that people are just really impatient for change, and who could blame them?
Emily Thornberry, who hates the St. George's flag. Remember, she was scoffing too with Lewis Goodall of the fake news agents about Jeremy Clarkson entering Parliament.
Kevin Hollinrake on the show earlier, who was urging that Jeremy Clarkson should stand for Parliament, that he'd welcome him into Parliament. How would you feel about Jeremy Clarkson on the green benches, Emily Thornberry?
Whatever. I mean, whatever. If people want to vote for him, fine. You know, whatever.
Oh, and then there were the idiots at woke ITVs this morning still thinking that they can use Nigel Farage as a, wait for it, barometer for unpopularity during a dire interview with Slippery Starmer, who ruled out an early election.
But are you now feeling the pressure? Because I think there's a petition that's currently online
have dropped.
1.9 people who want the election to go again.
It's now
is
over
it 2 million now?
It's now just over 2 million.
Do you feel the pressure?
Look, I remind myself that very many people didn't vote Labour at the last election. I'm not surprised that many of them want a rerun. That isn't how our system works. There would be plenty of people who didn't want us in the first place. So look, what I focus on is the decisions that I have to make every day. And it's a bit like opposition.
You want us, the public, to trust you, to like you, to think he's the man for the job, he's doing what he needs to do. Your approval rating is lower than Nigel Farage's right now, which even saying it to the Prime Minister of the country I live in, that I pay tax in, to say your approval rate is lower than Nigel Farage, that's disappointing. Whoever I support.
The thing is, if you make your mind up, as I have done, that we're going to do the difficult things first, then I think it's inevitable that people do feel they're difficult decisions. I mean, I understand that.
Now, look, of course we don't think the petition is going to lead to a general election immediately, although I note the irony that it was actually Two-Tier Care who wanted to subvert the democratic vote in Britain's, the biggest democratic vote in Britain's history. Do you remember that? Leaving the European Union by holding that so-called people's vote. So I do note that, but let's put that to one side. Because I think what this petition is really about is making it clear that we don't have to put up with this absolute shower for 5 more years. Listen to Ben Habib, the former deputy leader of Reform UK, explain.
People say to me, Ben, there's no chance of this government giving up its huge majority, no matter what happens between now and 2029. And I don't agree. I think that there are pressures that can come to bear that could force this government back to the electorate. And the most obvious one is a collapse in the economy. And I think some of the measures taken by Rachel Reeves already are not playing out the way she expected them to play out.
Our very own June Slater made a good point too.
There's a lot of people saying that this petition is a waste of time. Let me tell you where I'm coming from. You're wrong. No, it isn't. It's a waste of time if you think you're going to get him unseated by going down this route. No, you're not. But considering how much money is spent on advertising a product or service on TV, and you think how much traction this has got in the press and on TV and overseas in national publications, this is invaluable publicity, showing the world that no matter what the voting public decided in July, they've changed their minds. Where this is important, people don't get it.
Exactly, June. As Gwen Towler, the former Reform UK spokesman, put it, So far, 6 constituencies have had more than 5% of their registered electors sign this government recall petition. Much as I find the thing constitutionally absurd, it is becoming a serious statement of public unhappiness. Our friend Chris Rose added, in roughly 24 hours, the petition for a general election has already surpassed 1 million signatures. I don't believe a general election will be called. I'm intrigued at the momentum showing the dissatisfaction towards this unpopular government. Last year, a petition ran for 6 months and didn't pass 300,000. Now, I proudly signed the petition at the weekend. I actually did it for the reasons outlined by Suzanne Evans in this tweet. Suzanne, another good friend of the show, wrote, because they lied about just about everything, absolutely I have signed this petition. This is an illegitimate government. Daniel Hannan, Lord Hannan, explained further, saying he has signed for many things for which Labour has no mandate. The farm tax, the Chagos surrender, woke national curriculum, national insurance hike, drilling ban, bigger civil service, 4-day week. Of course there are naysayers too. This is how Edwina Curry responded to Daniel, saying we've just had a general election. We may not like the results. We may not like what this new government is doing. We'll have to live with it for some time, but this petition is pathetic. Now, I like Edwina. I've known him for a very long time. But Edwina, it's not pathetic. It's not pathetic, especially when you see the most important man in the world, other than Donald Trump, taking a serious interest in the results. Elon Musk quite rightly pointed out, the people of Britain have had enough of a tyrannical police state. And oh yes, Elon, we have. We really have. And it's only been 4 months. But we've also had enough of a crooked and corrupt MSM for so long that we thank God for X allowing independent journalists like me to speak the truth about what's going on here without the fear of censorship. That said, the legacy media, of course, plays its usual games. Barrister Stephen Barret pointed out, oh, for goodness sake, BBC, why are you ignoring the petition? But we're waking up to that, right? The mainstream media doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's on the BBC anymore. This caller to LBC gives me hope because he completely destroyed the establishment stooge Ben Kentish. Watch this.
You in the media, and I include you in this, need to take a long look in the mirror because you are, broadly speaking, I'm not pinning this on you, Ben, but the media is the propaganda arm of the establishment right now. And I think the mainstream media has become nothing but that. I mean, you parrot the talking points that you're told to parrot, that your paymasters and your advertisers.
Nobody's told me.
Sorry, can I finish, Ben,
let me
please?
just come back on that. Let me just come back on. Nobody has ever told me what to say. I don't. If you think I'm parroting somebody else, I genuinely don't know who you think I'm parroting.
People are rejecting career politicians. People are rejecting the elite group of people whose mouthpiece is the media. And Donald Trump, who I think you do a grave disservice to, the media has brainwashed people to feel a certain way about Donald Trump. You don't represent him fairly. He had 4 years as the President of the United States, and his record was very good. It was very good.
If we as the media have brainwashed people, then how's he just won election for a second time?
Because people are rejecting you, Ben. People are rejecting you. This is a rejection of you as much as it is a rejection of Kamala Harris.
But Dan, we haven't brainwashed anyone.
Take a bow, Dan. I promise it wasn't me. And look, this petition gives me hope too. But can I please send a request to everyone who has signed it? Don't let this be the end of your involvement in trying to save Britain. In fact, it must just be the beginning. Because with this sort of people power, we can take back control of our country in the swiftest peaceful revolution of all time. And now, the Superstar panel. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined today by our double team of barristers. One of the country's top, Stephen Barret. He is also a writer for The Spectator and the broadcaster, futurist and barrister Andrew Eborn. They join me alongside Norman Brennan, who I'm going to kick off with, because Norman, you were very influential this weekend. Of course, you are a law and order activist, but you were very influential this weekend in terms of the success of this petition. And let's get a live update. Look at that. 2.297 million signatures now. Norman, tell me how this all happened. Oh, if you could just unmute yourself, Norman, because I want to hear this story. So, yeah, Norman, tell me all about it.
Yeah, well, one of my followers messaged me on Saturday morning and said, have you seen this? So I had a look at it, and they said it's not really getting much traction. So I looked at it, and although it's not my bag, because my bag is homicide, gun and knife crime, and major crime, and basically telling the public what the law is and police procedures. So I looked at it, and then I just thought to myself, I remember pre-election, and let me be clear, I'm politically homeless. I didn't vote for anybody, so I'm in nobody's bed. And I looked at it, and I remembered all the promises that Starmer made. And I then remembered all the promises that he broke, and how convenient it was that he conveniently omitted many of the things that he then implemented within weeks of being elected. So I thought, okay, I'll have a look at it. I've got nearly 100,000 followers, and my followers are pretty brilliant. And I thought, let's just see what they think. So I then posted it out with my own overview. And I reminded everybody that within weeks of Keir Starmer being elected, something he neglected to say, he released thousands of prisoners. Then, almost immediately, he stole, in fact, £300 winter fuel allowance from 10 million pensioners. And then it was the farmers' turn. He was nicking their inheritance tax. Now, I know farmers, they work damn hard every hour that God sends. They don't earn a lot of money. They have to invest in a lot. They're regularly victims of crime. And I thought, why pick on them? They actually are the providers. And if we can't protect them, then who can we protect? Then, of course, he attacked the business industry with 2% interest hikes on the national insurance. And I thought, that's enough. So I then posted it out, and then I promoted it for the entire weekend. Although I spearheaded it, I was one of many. I didn't actually set it up. But at 3,500, I thought we need a fair bit more than that. So I spent my entire weekend helping it go viral. And as you rightly have just seen, we've hit 2.3 million already. And in about an hour, when I finished on this programme, I'm going to set the new target at 3 million. This morning, on This Morning programme, Keir Starmer dismissed our appeal or our petition. And he dismissed it in an insulting way because he said, well, there will always be some people that don't like me. But he doesn't actually know the demographics. There could be tens of thousands of people that actually sign this petition, Dan, that are Labour supporters. That,
oh,
like
I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that, because
they feel that they've been duped.
Yeah, so many people have been betrayed. I mean, look, we're not getting the full story about much of what is going on at the moment in this country. And I want to show you a really disturbing video of an interview from GB News where you just see the scale of what is happening to the farmers, something the MSM is not talking about in terms of the actual loss of life. Watch this.
Crossing over to it later. You don't want to miss this one.
Yesterday on the show, our reporter Anna Riley spoke to the Reverend Caroline Cornerstone at Selby Livestock Market. And this is part of the fascinating interview which took us all by surprise. Listen to what the Reverend had to say.
We are helping families cope with suicides of farmers.
Yeah, 5 suicides in the last 10 to 12 days. It's hard, it's tough, but that's what my function is here as the chaplain to the market.
That's an extraordinary figure. 5
in the last 10 days.
Yeah, amazing.
That is quite frightening, isn't it?
And that is in one geographical area. So, Stephen Barret, I've been fascinated and wanting to speak to you today because you say that despite what the naysayers are putting out there, this petition could be constitutionally significant. And you also say, by the way, that you now believe Starmer is leading the least popular government since World War II.
Yes, well, I don't think that's. I don't like taking risks, so I don't think that's terribly controversial. I think I'll be proved if people don't believe me now, and I suspect most people do. I think I'll be proved right very, very quickly. One of the things that happens to me on an absolute daily basis, multiple times a day, is that I get concerned members of the public who will tweet at me, Stephen, is there not something in law we can do to get rid of this government? And the simple fact is that there is not something in law that we can do to get rid of this government. And the reason for that is that we don't want judges to be dictators. We don't want judges to have ultimate power in this country. Ultimate power lies with the political process, lies with the people. This petition is part of political power in this country. It really is part of bringing a government down, just as Margaret Thatcher's government was almost brought down by the poll tax riots. This petition is part of the people bringing down Sir Keir Starmer's government, which I believe that they have every ability to do. Our constitution still functions. We've had 30 years of a very lazy belief that law fixes all problems. And actually, I think, and I'm so glad at your intro, Dan, because you encourage people to get involved. Yes. They must get involved. Yes. They must take political actions. They must do things if they want to fix things. No lawyer is going to fix things for you. No magical judge is going to come down as a dad and just make everything better. If you want your country fixed, you have to get involved. And it strikes me that this petition is the first step in people doing
exactly.
that.
Let's
remarkable.
be inspired by it. But Andrew Eborn, I was also really interested in a post by Myron Senthil Nathan of Reform UK, who said, of course, the aim is not to initiate a general election. It is to collectively rattle the cage, to dent the morale of Labour MPs who know they are on thin ice. It is a chance to show our outrage and humiliate a deceitful government to the rest of the world. Andrew Eborn, do you sign up to that?
Well, I think it's very simple. Rattling cage is absolutely right. And just to put it in perspective, the government's obligation with petitions over 10,000 signatures require a government response. 100,000 may be debated in Parliament, although that's not guaranteed. If you look at this current running total, which I know you
what are we at? Well, what are we at now?
2.3 million.
Woo!
2.3 million has spoken.
It's like a telethon.
It's extraordinary. And I have to say, Dan, congratulations at the very beginning. 103 shows. I love seeing you go from strength to strength and holding people's feet to the fire in a way that others are not doing. I have the joy of having Elon Musk, who's Elon's father, on my show every day. And I was discussing this petition with him. And he says, look, the UK is just a joke with Starmer in charge. It's going to dent the special relationship, which we boasted about for years, if we don't do something against it. He says the only solution is Starmer has to go. And you look at that sort of basis, and if you all stood, what I loved about the farmers was one of the brilliant T-shirts. We talk about spoonerisms, if you like, the stuck farmers. You work on that sort of basis. I think we should all get those printed and wear them.
And the thing is, Elon, I mean, I've watched your interviews with Elon Musk. I find them absolutely fascinating. And Elon is really shaming this government in so many ways. And it's not just this politician. I mean, look at a couple of his other posts over the weekend. He posted something I think that should shame anyone who believes in free speech. This headline about the UK saying reading Lord of the Rings and 1984 could lead to right-wing extremism. And Musk wrote, what is happening in the UK? That was in reference to a ludicrous report about Prevent. Then when it comes to Tommy Robinson, he posted, why is he in prison for 18 months? Now, Tommy Robinson is a name that if you're in the mainstream media, you're not even really allowed to mention. But Elon Musk is going to shift the Overton window. So how significant was it for you, Norman, given that you had been such a critical part of seeing this petition go viral? How critical was the moment when Elon Musk got behind it? Did you see the numbers explode at that point? And talk to me about the significance of Musk backing something like this.
Well, to be quite honest with you, Dan, every post that I put out, and I kept it fresh. What do you got to do as a campaigner? And I'm a formidable campaigner, even when I was in policing. I even got a third of the police service to sign one of my petitions. Absolutely unprecedented. And that actually caused the government to give police the side handle batons and much of the protection you got today. So I'm just like you. I'm just like a member of the public. And I don't just sit by and criticize people. I put myself up. I give people the facts. So getting back to your question, yes, it did have a good impression. But what does it say that when one of the richest men in the world and someone with such influence, and he has over 200 million followers, actually takes an interest? Of course, like all of us, I get a bit of abuse on social media. Some people don't like the old bill. Well, I've been out for 14 years. But I'm one of the most privileged people in Britain because I actually give an independent voice on policing, victimology, and I advise the public on the law, reassure them and tell them what they can and can't do when be involved in victims. So ideally, nobody should have a go at me, but of course they always will. But Elon Musk is very influential, and I don't really think he cares about those that attack him. But if you're a person with such influence and you can suggest and edge things along and give an opinion on something that someone that as meager as me and others, it was Michael Westwood that set it up, and I picked it up at 3,500, actually shows an interest and it then engages others.
Yeah.
And you're
do we know anything about Michael? Norman?
We don't. I understand he's a publican or involved in hospitality.
Oh, I want to support his pub. We need to find out which pub Michael Westwood owns, because we need to make it the biggest pub in the country at this point, because what an incredible thing that he did. Now, look, Norman, if you look at the polls, you can also see that there is real political change coming. Look at this from Inevitable West over the weekend, pointing out that the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, would lose her seat to Reform UK if an election was held. And the swing is just phenomenal here. Reform up 6 to 35%, Labour down 14 to 34%. So, Norman, do you throw your weight behind Reform UK, or where do you think the political change is going to come from?
I'll be quite honest with you. I'm sort of in touch one way or the other with many political parties, but it was only the Reform UK that actually contacted me prior to the election. Richard Tice asked me about knife crime, gun crime, policing, law and order. And I spent a lot of time behind the scenes telling him the realities. But just getting back, you've introduced Yvette Cooper. Let me tell you about smoke and mirrors and deceptions and convenient omissions. Is prior to the election, Yvette Cooper said, we are going to get 13,000 more officers on the beat, neighbourhood officers. Well, a police and crime commissioner that I know very well indeed said, Norman, there's a bit of smoke and mirrors here. And I like smoke and mirrors because I stand up and look beyond that and wait for the smoke to decrease. And let me tell you about these 13,000 very quickly. 3,000 will be warranted police officers. 5,000 are special constables that work 4 hours a week, so you rarely ever see them. The other 5,000 are PCSOs that don't have a lot of power, and I won't insult them because they do a good job. But when you think, Dan, that's 13,000 officers, and the previous government, the Conservatives, crippled policing and handed the streets over to the criminals when they took away 22,000 front officers and tens of thousands of backroom staff, which then meant the fewer officers had to do more, plus they had to backfill. And out of the 20,000 new officers, which were really replacing the 22,000 previous officers that were stolen from us, almost 5,000 have already resigned. Nobody wants to join the police anymore. More are resigning than joining. And looking at the demographics back to 2009, the British Police Service needs, because of the increase in the population since 2009, a further 18,000 police officers.
Yeah, we're in trouble.
And we're now
Why would you want to join the police, Andrew? Look at the officer in the Chris Cabba case in London. I mean, look, the country is in trouble, Andrew.
It's totally in trouble. And I always say that trust comes in on foot and leads on horseback. And the reality is trust in the media, trust in the police, trust in institutions is at an all-time low. And I think you're right. And this is what's happening. And you get this whole thing about two-tier care and these investigations of non-crime hate incidents. And you have the lunacy that we've seen about people being called a fish, or you're saying I had an aggressive haircut, or those sort of things, and all those be wasting police time on that sort of basis. It's nonsense.
It's embarrassing. No, completely. Well, look, stand by, you three, because breaking right now, exploding parcels all across the UK with major incidents at Gatwick Airport, Chester, the US Embassy in London, where someone has now been arrested for making a hoax, and Euston Station. Police are finally confirming too that terror cops are investigating whether an explosive device was planted on a plane. Do you remember this? Probably not, because the mainstream media pretty much ignored it. But an explosive device that exploded in a warehouse on a plane just outside of Birmingham in July. There are suggestions of Russian involvement. But the MSM is ignoring this major story. Certainly they don't want to join the dots here. No doubt to avoid properly questioning slippery Starmer on what I believe is a ludicrous decision to join Joe Biden in trying to create World War III out of Ukraine before Donald Trump takes power. But I know there is much that we're not being told. For example, over the weekend, a Gatwick Airport whistleblower contacted me to say that an explosive device had been found within a laptop. Now, this is a potentially seismic story, right? What if Brits die? But the MSM remains pretty much silent, as Matt Kilcoyne tweeted over the weekend, stabbing on Westminster Bridge nowhere to be seen, no updates on the suspicious packages and controlled explosions, nothing on the various wars going on, not even the royal parks all being closed, a series of magazine pieces and celeb stories. What on earth is going on at the BBC? So yet again, we have to turn to the independent media. And Alex Phillips, a former Outspoken guest, good friend of mine, she has an important theory on this. She said all the controlled explosions around the UK, Glasgow, Gatwick, Euston, Chester, all come after a series of parcel fires targeted cargo plane depots in Poland, Germany, and the UK. Now, I don't know, but if I were to guess, this is also Russia flexing in the wake of Storm Shadow missiles being given to Ukraine to use on Russian targets. My gut says if it was Islamist terrorism, those packages would have gone off, not been left to cause disruption and panic. If Russia had detonated explosives, it would instigate all-out war with the West. Nobody can afford that, but Putin does want to show how pissed off he is. I could be wrong, but that's my hunch. And Darren Grimes also said, the powers that be keep us in the dark. What on earth is going on? Is there a connection, or are we just being left to join the dot ourselves? Britain in 2024, violent crime rampant, public safety questioned, and still silence from those in charge. Something doesn't add up. What aren't they telling us? Back with our superstar panel now. Norman Brennan, you have to admit, as a law enforcement professional, this looks odd. Why aren't we being told the whole truth? Why aren't we being told about what the controlled explosion at Euston was all about? Why aren't we being told if a bomb was discovered in a laptop at Gatwick Airport? Surely this is a huge story.
It is a huge story, but in defence of policing, which they rarely have anybody standing up defending them, is because of police reasons and protocol. They will only tell the public what they feel that the public need to know from the police perspective. Often we're looking for people that we actually know. So what we don't want to do is actually put them off or let them know who we're looking for. So what the police do, same as any homicide or anything else, they will tell the public the minimal information. I absolutely know and understand the appetite of the public wanting more and more information. The public often say to me, and I post on nearly every homicide and shooting and stabbing in London around the country, what is the colour? Well, to be quite honest with you, I never get involved in that. The colour is absolutely not important. What is important is what has happened, who has been hurt or killed.
Well, yes,
and what
I agree with that. But surely, Andrew Eborn, it is also important to know if these incidents are linked in some way. Are they being investigated together?
You're absolutely right, Dan, as always. And what happens if you stop people, you keep them in the dark, they fill the vacuum with their own sort of wild and spurious theories. But without doubt, Putin's made it very clear there's going to be retaliation. It may not be a direct strike or whatever it is, but this is certainly a possibility. And it was always, you work on that sort of principle, you want to sell anything to anybody. Fear is by far the greatest human emotion by which you can sell things. And I think by keeping us in the dark, fear is only going to spread. So we need that information. The reports about the Westminster Bridge incident, it started off as a stabbing. It then turned into, the media reported it as a heart attack. But clearly there was an incident. And again, it's another example of where information is being kept from people. We need to know things so we can form informed decisions and keep us safe.
Stephen Barret?
We fought a war where we knew more about what was going on than we seem to know today. It's about there is a line. Obviously we can't know everything, that's perfectly understandable, but what has changed is that we're no longer treated like grown-ups who can be trusted to know quite a lot of things and then not told certain things, and instead we are massively infantilized from day one. The automatic assumption of those in charge is that we can't know anything. If we know anything at all, we'll react hysterically. Now, I'm afraid that is then causative of problems. So at the moment, the authorities don't seem to understand that they cause problems. Like the one thing, Dan, that really gets me about the Southport riots is nobody seems to talk about Starmer's role in causing it. He was an out-of-touch, tin-eared leader who showed no emotion as he robotically walked up to place down a wreath, didn't talk to the crowd, didn't respond to heckles when they inevitably came, and then immediately, when those very sad and angry and scared people go bananas, as they did, he condemns them as far right and tries to pretend that Elon Musk caused the bloody thing. I mean, this is nonsense. And I think we need to go back. If we're going to become a high trust society again, then we need to go back to the authorities trusting us an awful lot more and treating us like grown-ups, and at the same time, us behaving like grown-ups. So certainly an awful lot less, of the kicking off and the silliness and the childishness. But at the moment, we seem to be going down the doom loop where the authorities seek to control us more and more. And we seem to act like children more and more. It's in Star Wars. The more you seek to control us, the more power and control will slip from your grip. If the authorities don't know that, and by the way, Dan, we are a democracy. I keep seeing behavior like a dictator.
Yep.
Starmer's already behaving like a thin-skinned narcissist. Yesterday, I compared him to the Emperor Nero. I think he's terribly disappointed in us.
Yeah, no, completely. Which is why Elon Musk keeps on saying this is like a totalitarian police state. I am so glad, Stephen Barret, though, that you have spoken about Starmer's behaviour in the hours and the days after Southport, because it's something that I have spoken about on this show, but actually very, very few people, certainly no one in the mainstream media has even gone there. But I could not agree more. He was very much responsible for this. He was so personally horrified about the fact that he was heckled that he couldn't handle it. So he decided to go into his little cove and say, I'm not going to say anything, but what I'm going to do is crack down on these people who hate me. In fact, when he was being heckled, he should have had the balls to go and speak to those people. One of the people who was heckling him was the best friend of someone whose daughter had just been stabbed, and he walked away. He ignored the British public because I felt like the people yelling at him at that point were all of us. They represented all of us. They represented all of our frustrations, and he turned his back.
Of course, and that's somebody a good politician puts an arm around.
Yes.
That's what Boris would have done. Boris would have gone into the crowd. There's a line, I like Claudius, and there's a line, there's a riot, and Livia can't deal with it. So she says, we need to get Marcus Agrippa back. Agrippa speaks their language. And Starmer cannot speak our language. He does not get us. He does not understand our feelings. He doesn't seem to understand any human emotion at all, or have favourite films, or he just doesn't seem to be a real person. But
He's
a
not a fan of the
talented
people.
politician, but a talented politician would have simply walked into that crowd.
What was that, Norman?
Calmed
Sorry.
everyone down. And it's not party political, because I'm sure that there are very able Labour people who could have done it. It's just that Boris springs to mind.
There's not
as the
many
most...
politicians who could have done it full stop. But I'll tell you what, Nigel Farage wouldn't have turned his back on those grieving people. Sorry, Norman, what was your point?
Mr. Starmer, he is not a man of the people.
No.
He is, as I agree with one of your other guests, he's a dictator. He tells you what he wants to. And getting back to the original petition, the reason why 2.3 million people have signed it, because it's because he has not done what he said he would do. Yeah. What he has done is he has hurt Britain. He hasn't just hurt certain sections. He's hurt all of us. Yes. He's hurt the farmers. He's hurt the pensioners. He's hurt the police officers. He's hurt the public. He's hurt businesses. There isn't anybody.
And he lied about it too. He lied about it too. I feel like he is literally spitting in our faces. And I know that is a strong term, but that is how I feel. I feel like he lied so blatantly and he doesn't give a damn about it. But look,
you're so right, Dan. There was that sort of moment during the election campaign when they talked about basically we won't be putting up the taxes on the ordinary working man. And it was those weasel words. We thought, well, what's an ordinary working folk? Because the reality is we've got increase in national insurance was going to have a trickle-down effect. You've got pensioners who've got a choice between heating or eating this winter. Elon Musk, I say my new best mate, basically he wasn't even invited to the
no, they hate him. They hate him because he called them out. Breaking right now, for Donald Trump, it was the cats and dogs of Springfield. But there are now growing fears that illegal migrants right here in the UK are eating protected British swans. After a picture I'm about to show you from Winsford Marina in Cheshire went viral online. So a local wrote here, swans are protected species in Britain, but illegals don't care. Of course they don't. Why would they? The government pay for them to live here, then tell them they can do what they like. This was Winsford Marina, Cheshire. Now, we all remember the point that Donald Trump made in his presidential debate versus Kamala Harris.
All over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets.
So surely, if British swans are being eaten in Cheshire, this should be a national story. Back with my superstar panel, Norman Brennan, is this something that police would just dismiss and say, oh, well, it's not important enough because we have to focus on crimes against humans?
It's not that they're not interested. It's just that police officers are like a fire brigade police service. They run from one emergency to the next. They're pulled from boroughs in their hundreds to keep on policing these marches. They don't get time even to spend with their families. They don't get time to investigate crime. The stabbings, the shootings, the rapes, all the serious assaults that the public are concerned about. An officer might have 5 or 6 calls, just his car, to deal with numerous calls, and there's no one to back him up. So when you look at something like swans, which are protected by the Crown and are deemed
protected by the King.
Well, that's absolutely right. But the thing is, Dan, there is no deterrence to anymore. Getting back to the petition, getting back to this government, we will stop the gangs, smash the boats, all the different sayings. He's done nothing. But what he did do, he ditched what the previous government had suggested trying. He thought that would be triumphant, but he has replaced it with nothing. We have, sadly, tens of thousands of migrants, and the biggest number are under him already. That's why he is being hated.
Of course. And he has no actual plan to stop the invasion. We know about that. Okay, Stephen Barrett, from a legal perspective, what are these residents meant to do? in Cheshire if they suspect illegals are now pulling their protected swans from ponds and eating them? What are people meant to do?
Well, one of the problems, Dan, at the moment, and it doesn't really require the story to be true or not true, because all of us will know people who've been the victim of crime recently, and more importantly, victim of crime that was not in any way pursued, investigated, or followed up on. And I think that's Norman's point. Far too many of us are aware that laws are breaking down in our societies. I mean, if I walk into the center of my town, I see endless law breach. I just see constant breaching. It got worse immediately after the pandemic, but I'm afraid we've all turned into New York in the 1980s. And unless somebody comes along, like their gifted mayor did.
We need our own Rudy Giuliani.
Who started to police and to enforce basic laws, you're on this slippery slope to absolute decay.
Yeah, but Andrew Eborn, what do people do though? If they're in Cheshire and they literally are seeing people who they believe to be illegal migrants pulling the protected swans from the pond, what are people meant to do? Just allow that to happen? Just accept that the police are going to ignore it?
No, they absolutely shouldn't. It's a protected species, although it is legal, bizarrely, in some US states, including Alaska, Utah, Montana, and Virginia, although it's obviously illegal in places like New York and throughout the UK. But clearly where it's happening, we've seen this as well, though, previous pictures of seagulls being captured and on that sort of basis. If this is happening, then obviously the police need to do it. People need to record it. And this report came out in social media. You're putting up pictures now. We need to report it. And so we don't get dismissed in the way that Trump was dismissed when he said that people were eating pets.
Well, exactly.
So
He was dismissed. He was dismissed. I'm sorry. I've seen the videos from America. You know, this is the thing when people talk about the mainstream media now and they talk about fact-checking outlets that are all left-wing. We can see for ourselves. We don't need you to fact check. We can see the videos ourselves. And again, I want to show you all some really disturbing citizen journalism. This is coming from Newcastle and the New Bridge Hotel, where locals are very, very worried about the influx of illegal migrants. Watch.
A 4-minute walk from the monument. It's housing 800 illegal males. This hotel is owned by Imran Khalid. He's supposedly earning $4 million a year from this government contract. $4 million a year. Migrants from this hotel have been following girls around. From this hotel, have been following girls back to the student accommodation from the university. The university is nearby. The migrants from this hotel have been following them back to the student accommodation. And all it takes is for a drunk girl to walk past you, all right? One of the migrants are going to drag them into the alley and rape them. It's only a matter of time. I can guarantee it's already happened. But it's not like you're going to see it on the news because the police are actively covering it up. And the Premier police are actively covering up the migrant crimes.
They're not covering it.
Well, exactly. So, Norman Brennan, I knew you'd want to respond to that because you can understand why locals are so worried, right? You can understand that. But he makes a direct claim that the police are covering up crimes for migrants. Is that true?
They're not covering up. They're just not telling the public. Look,
isn't that the same thing?
And I'll give you the true facts. Is that I'm aware, because I get huge amounts of information from serving officers, retired officers, the public and victims, is huge numbers of crimes are being committed by illegal migrants that have entered this country illegally. That's why they're called illegal migrants. Some have committed murder. Some have thrown acid at partners and wives. Others, or many others, have committed rapes. They've indecently assaulted girls. They commit shoplifting. They commit huge amounts of crimes. And I'm aware of at least one force where their officers are told by their chief officers, do not tell the public who is committing the crime and what they're doing. And the reason why they do that and don't tell the public is they're scared witless of public disorder. And the caveat to all of this, Dan, is this. This government are absolutely clueless on law and order. Just today, they're talking about a new offence for spiking drinks. We already have numerous offences under the Sexual Offences Act. There was shoplifting that was out of control. What did the government do? We're introducing, and your two panellists there will know I'm talking the truth. What did they do? Instead of get more police officers on the street, get the courts to do their jobs, they introduced a new crime. Section 39 of the Criminal Justice Act covers common assault. 38, assault with intent to resist arrest, if that's what you do. Section 47, ABH, 20, GBH, 18, GBH with intent, attempt murder. Dan, we have all the offences. And what the government don't do is say, right, we understand the hurt the criminals commit society. We will ensure we got the police officers. We'll ensure that there are deterrents, that the courts do their job. But what do? They introduce a nonsensical offence when we've already got them there. We have lost our way. The lunatics have not taken over the asylum. They've taken over this government, the criminal justice system, and the public are sick to death of a government that doesn't care.
Which brings us back perfectly to the petition.
Yes.
And I repeat, it's more than a petition, Andrew. It's a live expression. I mean, look at the numbers just going up like that. 2.3 million now.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? And Mike Westwood, as we said, he's only 4. He's a publican. I can tell you, is at the Wagon and Horses in Oldbury, which he says is
good. We've found out. Okay. Oh my goodness.
We'll all go down there afterwards for the after show party. It's got to be good.
The Wagon and Horses, where, sorry?
In Oldbury.
Let's
and he says it's the cheapest pub in Britain. It's about £2.60 a pint. So I'll treat you all to the first round. We'll celebrate your success, Dad. It's going to be good. But the people have spoken. And as the reason, as I say, I spoke to Errol this morning, Errol Musk, he said, look, people have to listen. People have to wake up, even though there's no obligation. Just to be clear, there's no obligation at all to call a general election. It would be wrong not to listen to the people. Elon has got involved because he's the de facto president of the United States. He is such an influential person on world stage that he himself has taken issue with it. And you've got people like David Lammy calling out Trump on what would now be considered a sort of non-crime hate incident, if you like, the language that he was using.
Oh, of course. Absolute hypocrites. Wes Streeting, the health secretary, suggested that Jan Moir, a columnist from the Daily Mail, be pushed under a bus. No one's suggesting he should be arrested. That's two-tier justice, which is a whole other thing. But look, Norman Brennan, thank you so much for being here on Outspoken for the first time. Congratulations on being right behind this petition. 2.3 million.
3 million we're going to target it as. 3 million is our next target. And we are going to, it keeps going till May. How many millions does the public have to vote for before this government actually realise that they are not the government that people voted them in for?
Absolutely. Well, look, keep us posted, Norman Brennan. Thank you so much. Do stand by those Stephen Barret and Andrew Eborn, because Stephen has made a very dramatic call for the Electoral Commission to investigate Rachel Reeves for her fake life. This is a major breaking story, and I'm going to bring you the developments in just 1 minute, so don't go anywhere. But first, with the holidays creeping up faster than your aunt's fruitcake recipe, I've got something way better to share with you. If you want, and actually, we've got a discount for Black Friday too, so you're going to want to stick around to hear that. But if you want to look sharp for all those festive gatherings and maybe finally win that Best Groomed at the Family Dinner Award, check out the latest masterpiece from Manscaped, the Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. Now, trust me, I used it yesterday. It's like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. So let's dive into the goods so I can show you. The Chairman Pro is armed with not one, but 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. Think of them as your grooming superheroes. The skin-safe 4-blade foil for when you want that baby's bottom smooth, and the skin-safe stubble trimmer for when you want to keep some stubble but clean it up a bit. That was like me yesterday. Both keep you looking sharp while minimizing razor burn and irritation, because nobody wants to show up to the holiday party, right, looking like they've lost a fight with the Christmas tree. But wait, there's more. The Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology, which is basically like the holiday miracle of shaving. It's like Santa's elves made it for you. The blades and pivoting head adjust to every curve of your face, and it's gentle on the neck area, as if they had the gift of foresight. So go ahead, kiss that awkward jawline patch goodbye. No more pretending it doesn't exist while you hope nobody notices under the mistletoe. And if you want even more precision, on the right side of the bracket, there's a precision lock. When you lock it, the blade head sits firm so you can achieve a more precise shave. And here's something that's going to make your grooming routine even easier. The Chairman Pro is waterproof. So yep, you can use it right in the shower. And the waterproof feature doesn't just make shaving easier, it also simplifies cleanup too. Just a quick rinse under the sink and you're all set. The Chairman Pro isn't just for daily shaves either. It's powerful enough to tackle up to 5-day growth, making it perfect whether you're shaving every day or just tidying up after a few days. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime, a single charge, you'll have plenty of juice to go from Santa's beard to smooth as a snow angel. There's a travel lock too and an LED spotlight. I find this really helpful actually because it allows you to see every detail, ensuring nothing gets missed. So get the Chairman Pro today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. It has everything you need to keep your face looking and feeling the best all in one box. And here's the exciting part. There's a bank holiday special on. So head over to manscaped.com and join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the code Outspoken for free shipping and 25% off this week to mark Black Friday. Exciting times. That's manscaped.com using the coupon code Outspoken. Now, back to the show. And breaking right now, top barrister Stephen Barret has called for the Electoral Commission to investigate the Chancellor Rachel Reeves for her fake life, including those lies on her CV, which, by the way, the mainstream media don't seem to believe is a story. Rachel Reeves has been speaking to a whole load of journalists today, and for some reason, yet again, she got away with all of this. But Stephen Barret has posted on X, as she has chosen to display no personal honour, I am calling on the Electoral Commission to begin investigating Rachel Reeves. I invite others to join me. Thank you to those contacting me privately. These are serious issues and would be regardless of which party is involved. He added, there is no ignoring this. The Chancellor must resign. And the barrister, Stephen Barret, top barrister, joins me now alongside another barrister, like quite a double act, Andrew Eborn, who is also, of course, a broadcaster and futurist. So, Stephen Barret, tell me about this. You want the Electoral Commission to investigate. Why and how can that happen?
Yes, well, it's not a pleasant thing to have to do or to call for, but it is very important. It's fundamental to the rule of law that rules apply to everybody equally. And this isn't about a Labour Chancellor in particular. The same position would apply if it were a Conservative Chancellor. But I'm afraid, I think in our world, it wouldn't just be me calling for a Conservative Chancellor to be investigated. It would be an awful lot of others, and it probably would have happened by now, and that a Conservative Chancellor would have resigned by now. And I do worry that there is two-tier effectiveness in our country, and that nobody is paying as much attention to this simply because Rachel Reeves comes from the left. But these are absolute scandals. She has claimed to be an economist, and that she did that because that invokes her with a certain grandeur. It elevates her. It makes her sound more important and more able than she is. Now, it's not a regulated term, so I'm not going too far in all of this, but I do think that the Electoral Commission need to investigate. They are the body that looks into this. The other body would be the police, and some individuals have contacted me about the possibility of a private prosecution. I think that the Electoral Commission should investigate and get to the truth of where we are with the Chancellor. I do worry, Dan, that they're going to be really bureaucratic, and I'm going to have to actually write a letter to them and then attach all the Guido Fawkes articles. But honestly, we all know the information because we can all read Guido. So we all know this. The Electoral Commission will be fully aware of all of these allegations against Rachel Reeves. They really ought to be taking action independently now. But I'm afraid the regulatory world in which we live means that most regulators are cowards and sit there trying to do anything.
Stephen, so can I just pick you up and ask you to explain how a private prosecution would potentially work?
Well, I worry about private prosecution, but I've been sort of persuaded,
because this is what Reform UK are doing with the Manchester.
Yes, but also it was what a vainglorious person did with Boris, and a rather unattentive judge allowed it through until a rather more attentive judge got rid of it. So it's a process that is capable of abuse. I broadly don't like politicisation of the justice system. I'm broadly opposed to that. So I just have a tendency to lean away from it. But I think that it's perfectly valid to begin private prosecutions of politicians if the system is breaking down. If the system is operating free and fair and the rule of law is in good, fit and hale and hearty health, then you wouldn't need to do private prosecutions. I think at the moment that it would be better if the Electoral Commission, as the official regulator, investigated what has gone on. I do wonder quite why the Chancellor is clinging on. She's desperately unpopular for a number of reasons, but this is, I think, the type of scandal that when I was a child, when I was a young man, ministers resigned for without much fuss.
Without any doubt. Come on, we know if this was a minister in the last government, this would have been leading the news. And what I find absolutely disgusting is that the mainstream media have not put one question to Rachel Reeves, not one question to Keir Starmer. They're all in this together. They want to back her because she's the first female chancellor, effectively, and they don't want her to be hounded from office so quickly. They don't give a damn about the fact that Liz Truss was a highly successful female prime minister. Andrew Eborn, do you agree? I mean, you're a barrister too. Do you agree with Stephen Barret on this, or would you think a private prosecution could be an option?
I love the fact on your show, Dan, you've got a pair of briefs. I think it's glorious. And what I also love is that glorious video evidence that you showed of Rachel Reeves in your very studio at Outspoken. If people haven't seen that, they should have a look at that as well.
She's even claiming she once hosted this show. How outrageous!
I know. I saw it. I saw the evidence. The point is this, Dan, is that justice.
It's a very disturbing sight. Can I just clarify, by the way? Can I just clarify? Sorry to interrupt, Andrew, but some people actually thought that I dressed up as Rachel Reeves. I will clarify. It was AI.
No, I tell you what, it's the proper landscaping. I think that obviously shows how well it worked. It was going to be good.
But sorry, Andrew, I interrupted you with your serious point. Can there be a private prosecution?
Justice is supposed to be blind, as Steve said. You've got to turn around and say it's irrelevant whether you're on any political party. We need to get trust back in the justice system. It needs to be investigated, and it needs to be investigated now. If lies were told or untruths were told, we need to know about it, and appropriate action needs to be taken.
But they were told.
And this is the thing. So why is nothing happening? I think exactly. So something should be happening. We need to get justice back being respected in this country. We need to make sure that there's not this two-tier system. It should be blind, and that's how justice works. It's irrelevant. Nobody is above the law. This is what they always say. The fact that Tommy Robinson's in jail, they say nobody's above the law because they had that situation about basically contempt of court. And there's a sort of misunderstanding about that. If they keep saying that sort of side, then Rachel Reeves cannot be above the law either.
Well, indeed. And look, the thing is, Stephen Barret, we're now in this extraordinary place where I'm seeing people across the left trying to say, oh, no, it's completely fine. She just told some white lies on her CV. That's fine. Okay, so they are our standards now, are they? Because those standards then have to apply across the board. And we know that won't be the case. We also remember, by the way, Stephen Barret, that this is a woman who plagiarized her book. So I don't just think the lies stop here. This is a woman who has cultivated quite a fake life, which is incredibly disturbing, given that I believe as Chancellor, she has already lied multiple times. She's lied about a £22 billion black hole, for example, partly because she was responsible for creating a lot of that black hole with her massive payoff to train drivers and other public sector workers. So this is a woman who seems to be a compulsive liar, which I find incredibly disturbing.
If that's true, we need to know. This is, we are still a great nation. She is Chancellor of our great nation. I mean, let's just go back to basics. She represents His Majesty the King. Her honour is His Majesty's honour. And that's why ministers resign when there is scandal. That's why Profumo resigned. That's why, countless ministers have resigned. And I don't just think it was the last government. I lived through the Blair governments and the Brown governments. And I think that a Blair minister would have resigned by now too. What we're seeing I actually have deep sympathy with my friends who are Labour supporters, because this aberration of a government, I've never seen anything like it before, and it seems to have absolutely no shame. So we're going back to the
speaking of
petition.
speaking of no shame, we just saw Mariana Spring there. She is the BBC's disinformation expert, okay, and she's in charge of this BBC Verify unit. Now, Andrew Eborn, not surprisingly, they have been very quiet on this story. Do you think it's possibly because Mariana Spring was also exposed for lying on her CV? There seems to be a bit of a track record.
Well, it's an interesting one. And I, as you know, I appear on more platforms than Paddington, including the BBC. So I've got a lot of time for some of them. The reality is, in order to get trust back, and trust in the BBC is also at an all-time low, they need to make sure that BBC Verify, which is actually a very good service, needs to be consistent across the board. Because you highlight,
I don't think it's a very good service, Stephen Barrett. Do you? I don't trust it for 1 second.
It's too much power in one place, and we need to relearn that power corrupts us humans. I mean, I see on Twitter sometimes a lot of people, they're like, you should be in charge, and they offer me power, and I'm afraid I have to be like Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings and go, no, don't give it to me either. It will.
You do have Gandalf's long hair.
He does. It's got to be good. Some more manscaping needed. He wouldn't have needed the wig for Rachel Reeves.
But we do need to just be aware that power corrupts, and not assume that Mariana Spring is going to use her, colossal and shattering power over what is and is not truth, just independently and with great virtue. She's not going to, because none of us would.
Yeah. I love the fact that every time I mention about Rachel Reeves coming on Outspoken, they pull up that glorious picture of you, Dan. It looks wonderful. Never in the same room. It's got to be good. No, it's absolutely right. There are some things which are very good about BBC Verify. My point is they have to be consistent. You've highlighted one area where there is that inconsistency, so we need to look at that again.
Yeah, I just think if you're trusting the BBC to tell you what's true or not, you're in trouble. That's my view. But what a duo. What a fabulous double act. Andrew Eborn, Stephen Barrett, and of course, Stephen, one of our best legal brains, has fascinating analysis all day long on X. And Andrew Eborn, your show is back. Where can we listen to it?
Oh, on more platforms than Paddington. I pop up all over the places on several stations. Virtually every station you've mentioned today, I've been on. I'm on Times Radio again tomorrow. I was on with Errol Musk, say, every single day. You get the Andrew Eborn show. You can subscribe on YouTube. Go and do that now.
Well, look, I want to listen to you independently when you're with Errol. I think that's the best place, because then you don't have the terrible mainstream media gatekeepers around. But Stephen Barrett, Andrew Eborn, such a pleasure to have you both here on the Superstar panel again today. Thank you very much. But don't go anywhere, because coming up, the uncancelled after show. And you're not going to believe this. David Williams, so you know he's been in a bit of trouble lately. He was dropped from Britain's Got Talent. I actually thought that was really unfair. He's been criticised over the fact that he did these controversial characters on Little Britain. I thought that was really unfair too. But he has the most bizarre new defence to all of this whole thing. I'm non-binary. So yeah, we're now meant to believe that David Williams is not a man or a woman. Oh my goodness, I've got a lot to say on this. And so does Lee Cohen, who is joining me very, very shortly on the Uncancelled After Show, which is now available on Substack. www.outspoken.live is the address. I've got to tell you, today I have just launched a Black Friday special with 30% off. This is our biggest sale of the year. Your support from just, at the moment, £3.50 a month plus VAT means so much to me, because it allows me to make this show. And I hope you can see, with all of the issues that we've been talking about, having a thriving independent media is particularly important at the moment. So you can subscribe for free. Absolutely. I want you to be part of the family. But if you can afford to join for £3.50 plus VAT a month, I would be even more grateful. So www.outspoken.live is that address. And right now, we have just launched the Black Friday sale with 30% off. So come on, What are you waiting for? You've waited this long, and I'd be so grateful. www.outspoken.live. We're back tomorrow at 5 p.m. UK time, of course, midday Eastern time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube and Rumble. I promise to keep fighting for you, but I look forward to seeing you on the after show with Lee Cohen in just one moment.